Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today we are having this webinar on building modern web application with React and WordPress. I hope everyone is working fine and having a great day. Today we have an expert with us on this, Imran Said, who is a full stack developer at RT Camp. And guys, if you have any type of question, please write it down in the comment box, and we will answer them in the session in the last. So I think Imran, you can just go ahead and start with your intro, and you can go with this flow. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. You already know my name is Imran, and I work for Articamp. I'm basically a full stack developer, and I have knowledge in React, WordPress, Node.js, Laravel, and there are others as well. So without wasting time, let's get started. So what we're going to talk about is building a decoupled headless WordPress application wherein you can have front end in React and back end in WordPress. Now the question comes that why should we even use React for front end? Could we not just use traditional WordPress and use the templating that it already provides? Well, yes, you certainly can. However, there could be some scenarios where you would want a decoupled architecture, maybe when data is flowing from different applications, different websites, and you want to bring that together. So let's understand why should we even use React for that. So first of all, React uses virtual DOM. Many of you must be familiar of it, that unlike jQuery or when you're using traditional JavaScript, it doesn't do a direct DOM query. It basically creates two copies of the DOM, and it actually compares the copy. If there are any changes that are made, is going to then update the real DOM. So that actually gives it a better performance because only that section of the page is going to change. So for example, that you have a big site where the header, footer, banner, hero section, all of that can stay constant, but only a part of it is changing, maybe at the point where you're commenting, right? So there's no need to reload the entire page application. You can actually have a single page application, give the user a seamless experience of having a native live experience, just like your mobile applications. It's also easy to create mobile applications using React Native. So once you know React, they both are not the same, but a lot of concepts that you build in React web applications can also be used in the React Native as well. The syntax and everything will be different, but if you already know React, then you working with React Native will be quite easy for you. And you all know that React is created and supported by Facebook. So there's a large community of developers. There's always a debate on which one should I go for. Should I go for React? Should I go for Vue? But yeah, React is really, really popular. As you must be familiar that when you actually build your application in JavaScript, there is a whole lot of libraries that are available that you can use for React that makes your life a lot easier. So if you're looking for a specific functionality, just do npm install in that library and you can use it straight away. It is available to you at your disposal straight away. Okay, so how do we get the data from the backend WordPress? Well, there are definitely several ways of getting the data. You can get it by traditional WordPress REST API. where you don't have to do anything. WordPress REST API is a part of the core itself, and there are definitely a lot of improvements that are happening. You can also get it by GraphQL, which we will discuss later. But let's focus on WordPress REST API, and let's keep it simple for now, because I'm sure many of you must be familiar with the REST API concept. So what is REST? So REST is basically a representational state transfer, and it is a representational state data object in XML JSON format, which is available at the server. And API is basically a way of two systems to interact with each other. So that's basically kind of uh, explanation of what REST API is. Okay, so what is REST API in WordPress? It's a way of accessing the WordPress data in representational state, which means in XML or JSON format via HTTP request. So for example, if your site is available at example.com, you can get the REST API data at example.com slash WP JSON slash v2 slash post, etc. So there are different endpoints that are available, which we will discuss in a moment. You can also perform CRUD operations on WordPress database using REST API. So you can not only just get the data, but you can also create data in WordPress from your React application. And WordPress is a headless CMS. You can use the WordPress as a headless CMS with the help of the REST API. So what is this headless CMS? Well, as the name says, a CMS that doesn't have a head. So when I say head, I mean the front end. So when we are using WordPress as a headless CMS, it means that we are not going to use the front end on the WordPress. We'll actually build a separate website in React, where we will be serving the content. So we can actually use WordPress as a content hub for that. So a headless CMS is a backend only built from the ground up as a content repository, and it makes the content accessible via RESTful API, which we just discussed. And it does not have a front end like I just explained to you. So basically, if you're asking me what will be in the themes directory, well, there'll be nothing in the theme directory. It can stay empty because we won't be using any of the WordPress themes. It will be React theme actually. So why use WordPress REST API? Well, you can create a single page application on top of WordPress. Like I said, the experience of the user will be better because it's going to be single page application. There won't be any page refresh. WordPress REST API unlocks the data to create brand new interactive front-end experience. And you can choose your favorite front-end technology. You could use React or Vue or any other front-end technology. And the best part is that you can keep your data at one place, which is in WordPress, but you can then build multiple applications with different layout and themes and designs. So you can even have mobile application, which is actually fetching data from WordPress, and you can manage all of that content in WordPress itself. So what are these endpoints and routes? So these are the terms that you need to be familiar of when you're dealing with WordPress REST API. Many of you might already be familiar, but let's go for those who don't know about it. So you take a look at this function, which is register REST route. It's a WordPress function. The first parameter you can see, it says WP v2ns. So let me explain to you what these are. You can pass methods. It could be get or post. You can also pass a callback. So this is how you register your custom endpoint. And then for that callback method, you can pass the request, and then you also have the response that you can return from it. So whatever you want to do, whatever action you want to perform, maybe perform some CRUD operation in WordPress, you can do that and then return that data from here. So whatever data you're going to return from here will automatically be available at your endpoint. So the return value of your callback is automatically converted to JSON, so you don't have to do anything for that. This class already does that for you. And when we have the data in JSON format, you know that it's really easy for us to consume that data in any of the JavaScript applications. You can also return a WP error instance in case if you don't receive the data or something goes wrong. You can mention that there is an error. So for example, let's say in this case, if the username was empty, let's say you are building a form where the user has not entered the username, then you can just return this as an error. You can add it to the error object and with a status of 400. And this will be the response in JSON. Okay, so based on what I have just described you, this is the endpoint where your API will be available. So let's say your WordPress is installed and it's being hosted on example.com. Then the route will be WP JSON, WP/v2, and NS is your custom namespace. So let me show that to you. So this is the base part of the API. This whole thing is your route. And then this part, which is WP/v2, v2 is actually the version number, is your namespace. And this is your core. And this part is your custom namespace. So this whole thing, WP/v2/NS, is the namespace. The left part of it, which is WP/v2, is the core namespace. And the NS is actually the custom namespace that you can define. I mean, you could name it anything that you want. This is to differentiate between the endpoints that are available from WordPress by default. And if you're registering a custom ones, then it's important that you add a custom namespace so it can be identified that, and it's not going to clash with the existing default endpoints that WordPress already has. So WP over here in the core is the vendor name. In this case, it's WordPress. V2 is the version number, like I explained to you, version 2 of the WordPress REST API. Posts that you see is the resource path of the resource that you're trying to access. So let's say you're trying to access categories, then you would probably use categories instead of posts. Okay, let's take a look. And if you're wondering how this number comes in, that ID, so that's the path variable, and you can use a regex for that. And here it means any numerical character at least once. Okay, so what's an endpoint? So we discussed what a route was. Let's discuss what endpoint is. So endpoints are basically a functions available through the API that perform CRUD operation. So they perform certain functions like taking some number of parameters and return the data to the client. And a route is the name you use to access the endpoint used in the URL. One route can also have multiple endpoints associated with it, like get, post, put, delete. So which means that if it's at /posts, we can have multiple routes with the same name, but they can do different things. Like one of them can get me the post, the other one can actually create a post. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. So let's say this is my WordPress site URL, example.com, and we already discussed that we need to add WP-JSON, WP/v2, NS is your custom namespace, and then post is the resource. You can see that both of the endpoints are the same. Actually, both of the routes are actually the same. However, they can perform different operations. So when we registered these endpoints, we observed that we returned a callback function, and we also defined whether it's a get method or it's a post method. So depending on that, it's going to perform that action. It could be a get request or a post request. Okay, now since we have a clear understanding of how this REST API works and how you can actually register your custom endpoints, let's also talk about how we can build and create the React application. Okay, so let me take you to a demo. So this is the React application that I have built. And then this is my WordPress install. These are all of the posts that I have. So if you've worked with WordPress, you already know that you can create posts over here. These are all the posts. And this is my front-end React application. And all of these posts, as you can see, these are the same posts that are also be displayed on the front end. And you can check a single post as well. You can go onto the blog page where we have all of the posts, when they were created, who is the author, images, etc. And you can also check out the single post. Okay, and let's look at the code a bit. Okay, so this code will be available to you on GitHub. If you want to try it out for your own website, you can. You can go at Imran H. Syed and then you go to repositories and you can search for React with WordPress. One. And all of the code is available to you over here. So you can try it out. It's an open source one. So we have a client config where we can pass our WordPress site URL. This could be very well be just example.com, but in my case, since I'm using the local host, local setup, that's why I'm using this. I can also change it to my live website. So I can change it like this. So this is my live website for where my WordPress is installed. And you would notice that automatically all of the content is going to change. So now you can see that it's a different content that I'm getting. It's not the same content here. If anyone wants to try their own website in their React application, they can also let me know their WordPress site URL, and towards the end of the talk, we can also test that in the React application. Okay, let's continue. Now you'll ask me, Imran, what about the authorized request? Can I also perform CRUD operation from the front end? You will say to me that yes, you spoke to me about that. I can do post requests as well, but how do I do that? What about authorizations? Because if I'm submitting a request from the front end, how do I authorize them? Is there a way we can do that? So for that, the solution is JWT. So many of you might have already heard about what JWT is. It's JSON Web Token. You can get information on that on https jwt.io. So how JWT work is, specifically in this case, which I'll demo you in a moment, we have a client and we have a server. So client sends a request. Let's say if you are creating a login request for the user. So a post request is sent on WordPress, which will be through the REST API, and along with which user enters their name as well as the password. What is going to happen is that server is going to generate a token, which is JWT, and then it's going to send the token back to the client. On the client, which is your React application, you can store that token into the local storage. Now you'll say to me that, is it safe to store in the local storage? Can somebody not steal the token and make a request? Well, I would say that they can't, because JSON web tokens, they also have something called secret. Now, this secret is actually kept at the server, which means until you have the secret, even though you have the token, you can't really break it. Okay, so next time, once he's logged in, we can make a create post request, which will be through the REST API. And in the headers, authorization headers, with the bearer token, we can send the token along with that to the server. At the server verifies the token. If the verification is correct, then it is believed that its user is definitely validated, and then you can perform the create operations, which is the post request. Maybe create a post or create something else. Okay. And then if it needs to send any private data, it can send because the validation is successful. All right, so if you go to that website, this is how the JWT look like. So you can see that they're in different colors. You have the headers, you have the payload, and you also have the verification signature. If you notice at this point, you have the secret. So even though this information will be available, the secret won't be available, so you can't really break it. Okay, so let me show you a demo of that. So this is my WordPress application. I've already created a user for myself. If I want to log in from the front-end application, I can. All I have to do is put my details. Since this, I have to just change. it to the local because the website one, it's a pretty complex password. This one is going to be easy. Okay, and see, there you go. You're logged in. And now it also displays my name over here. And on the local host, if you go to users, that's the name I have, which is this one. And then I can also create a post from here. So currently, if you check the post section, there's nothing of, you can see the last post is this one. Let's create a new one from the front end React application. Let's give it like new post. This is my content. And I'm going to show you network tab, what's happening. So you can see that it has actually stored the token when you have made a login request. And now we are going to send a post request. So let's submit it. You can see that the post request is submitted. And it's at the WP-JSON WP v2 posts. So this is a default endpoint that's already available in WordPress, which means you don't have to actually create a custom endpoint for this, but as long as you are providing the authorization bearer token in the headers, then it's fine. So you can see that in authorization, you have the bearer token that's been passed over here, right? You can see a new post created, you check in the backend, you refresh the page. Awesome. You've got this new post, edit it. There you go. This is the content. And now let's find out. You can see that the new post is also visible here. Okay, cool. So this means that we can perform CRUD operation. Now, I would say to you that it's not really required to create posts from the React application because WordPress already provides all of that. There's no point reinventing the wheel. This is just for kind of tutorial purposes that it is possible to perform CRUD operations. Now you could be doing something else which requires authorization. For example, if you're building a WooCommerce store in React, then at that time you would need to do add to cart. So let me give you a demo of that. So there is another repository and it's called Gatsby WooCommerce theme. Let's go with the demo. Okay, I'm just going to log out. I'll just make sure my local storage is cleared. Okay, here you go. So now you can see that over here, when you have to do add to cart, if you want to go ahead and make the user log in, if they want to check the my account page at that time, if he's logged in, if you want to show him all of the orders that he has placed, definitely you will need to have an authorized request. Okay, by the way, if you want to check out this WooCommerce site, which is built in React, you can see it's pretty fast. You just click on it and then there is no page reload. It's just smooth. You can do add to cart from here. So you can see it's add to the cart. Let's add a couple more. 1, 2, and there you go. You've got all of it. You have got billing details. You can place an order from here. You've got your cart. You can update it. Notice that there's no page refresh here. In fact, this website is, by the way, it's live. You can go to this website and you can play around with it. And you can also remove it. So unlike your WooCommerce, which is there in WordPress, every time you want to make an update to the cart items, you actually have to click on update. But here, if you notice, it's just a single page application and just lightning fast, right? Notice what happens when you search the page. You can see how fast this is. And then let's go to the next page. You also have pagination. You have the nice blurred effect on the images. Okay, and the posts that you see over here, this is all coming from Gutenberg. So you can create all of this content from the WordPress editor. You can also uh, go to the archive pages like categories, decor, etc. Okay, so that's that. And if you just want a website to use, I mean, if even if you are not a programmer, not a developer, you can still use this. So it's again, it's an open source project that I've created for WooCommerce. So this all site is built in React. And why I have used Gatsby. So Gatsby, a lot of you might already be familiar, is actually a React framework. Now, what happens is that when you are actually building a React application through Create React App, you have to handle server-side rendering yourself. Because if you'll notice, like comparing this application with the other one, if you check the page source, you can see it's empty, right? So inside of the root, there's nothing, which means everything, all of the content is actually being inserted client side when this page is loaded, which is not really good for SEO. Would Google crawl it? Would your website be listed? Yes, it would be, but it would take time. It's better to have content beforehand. So let's compare it with the Gatsby site that we have built. And let's see what happens when we open the page source. So now if you see, all of the content is already there. So it's already rendered. So this is good for SEO, right? Even on this one, you can do a social share. You can share it on Twitter. You can share it on LinkedIn. Okay, so all of that feature is already available. So this is good for me because using Gatsby, we don't have to do that ourselves. We don't have to do server-side rendering ourselves. This is provided to you by Gatsby out of the box. We also have other frameworks like Next.js. You can also use Next.js that also provides server-side rendering by default. And a lot of the things that you have to do on your own, for example, setting up Webpack and Babel, because when you're writing code in modern JavaScript using ES6, not all browsers would understand that, right? I'm sure you agree to me that there's one browser that will always have a problem. And I would like you guys to guess that. Which browser will always be the last to implement any of the new changes? Let's find out. Sure, many of you might have already guessed it. Let's see arrow function from ES6. So where do you see red? The very first place I see red is your IE, right? So always the last. So since the modern JavaScript is not understood by all browsers, especially IE, we need something to convert that into JavaScript that all browsers can understand. And for that, we use Babel. Then for all of the bundling of the components, we use Webpack. So if you're building the React application yourself, you have to set up all of the tooling unless you're using Create React App. But again, you know that in Create React App, you don't have server-side rendering, right? So if you're using frameworks like Gatsby or Next.js, or even Razzle for that matter, then they not only set up all of these tools for you by default, so creating these applications like super fast, super easy, but they also provide other features like server-side rendering, and there are a lot of functions available that will make your life a lot easier to build these applications quickly. Okay. Now, if you want to just have a blogging theme, so this was for WooCommerce. If you want to just have a blogging theme, I've also created another project. This is called Gatsby WordPress themes. All you have to do is just mention your WordPress website and just follow this README, and then you can use this React theme, which means even if you are not a developer, you can still use it. So take a look at this one. So this is available on NPM as well. And let's take a look at the live demo. So you can see there was a blurred effect when this website was loaded. And if you notice how fast this website is, let's go to any of the pages. Let's go to About. You can see that it was like blazing fast, right? So you've got categories, you've got you've got next page, previous page, all of these features are available. You have got a blog page as well. Okay, so you can go ahead and use this. So if you just want your own WordPress website to look like this, all you have to do is just install this package and deploy it. And that brings us to a question of how do I deploy it? When it comes to WordPress website, it's totally up to you where you want to deploy it, because this is a decoupled architecture. So WordPress can stay on maybe HostGator or DigitalOcean, any other hosting solution you can choose for that. And the React application, you can choose Netlify or Vercel. So how would the domain look like? Well, let's say that this is your WordPress website, https coretech.com. So this can be WordPress. And then, sorry, maybe you can keep this as your React application. And then for WordPress, you can do like wordpress.coretech.com. So maybe you can put that on subdomain, because it's always good to put the front end application at the main URL. Okay, you can also have subdomains. So maybe WordPress can stay at coretech.com/WordPress. And in terms of hosting, you can also host them together if you want as well on a single hosting platform. Okay, if you want to learn more about React, you can go on to coretech.com and you can go on to courses. So this is an open source platform that I have created where you can learn different techs. For example, JavaScript, you can learn about Gatsby, GitHub, Babel, Webpack, PWA, WordPress, all of that stuff, right? So all of these tutorials are available. And this is not just for the people who already know about it, but even for advanced stuff. So if you take a look at this one, the React tutorial, this is from beginner to advanced. So this is going to cover everything basically, your basics plus the advanced stuff as well. And then if you want to learn how to build the application like I've just built, you can also go onto my YouTube channel and you will find tutorials over there how to actually build such applications very easily. Okay, cool. So I think that's pretty much it. And just a few things. At RTCam, we also have a channel if you want to learn WordPress. There's a website called learn.rtcam.com. You can register on that. And once you complete the course, you can also apply for a job at RTCam. And the courses like explained to you is available at coretech.com/course. The GitHub repository is as /Imran H. Syed, React with WordPress. And this is my Twitter handle. Please follow me on GitHub as well as the Twitter. And please star my repository if you like my work. Okay, that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you so much, Imran. I think in a very short period of time, explaining this WordPress with React and everything so simpler way, I think it's very helpful to us. Thank you so much for this. And
Thank you.
we have even got questions for that. But before that, please share this GitHub profile in the comment section also. I think many of them are very curious with this React GitHub profile. So please share the link with us,
Okay.
and then we can start with the questioning sessions.
Okay.
So the first question like we are having is, why not use GraphQL other than REST? I think why not use GraphQL?
Very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Okay. All right. So, to be honest, um, if you ask me, if you're a beginner, a lot of people may not be comfortable using GraphQL at the beginning. So, if you're a beginner, I would say that start with REST API first and then go to GraphQL. Of course, GraphQL has its own advantage. The best example I can give you is that if you go to a restaurant and you ask for maybe fries and Coke, if it's a REST API, they're going to just bring everything they have in the kitchen. And you'd ask them, why did you get me everything? So that's REST API. You ask for two things and it's just going to shove everything and give it to you. But with GraphQL, you ask for fries and Coke and that's all you get. So definitely GraphQL is the best. if you notice the two repository that I am going to share with you, one with Gatsby, especially the Gatsby WordPress theme and Gatsby WooCommerce, they both are built with GraphQL. The first one I shared is basically for people who are just starting, who are not really familiar much with GraphQL and things like that. For them, they can at least start with REST API because it's very easy to grasp. But if you still want to learn GraphQL as well, there are tutorials available on my website which will tell you how to build the front end React application with GraphQL as well as React and with WordPress.
So mainly
Oh,
GraphQL has been preferred with this, other than REST, or
yes,
REST has been preferred more.
yes, that's correct. I
Okay.
mean, I personally, to be honest, most of my projects that you're going to see will be with GraphQL itself. The last two as well are with GraphQL. The REST API I built for, especially for beginners who say that, okay, can you at least make REST API, option for me because I'm not too familiar and I really don't know how these things work. So I have kept both the options. So preferred way is definitely GraphQL, but if you do want to know how it works with REST API, I have shared that option with you as well.
Okay, great. Then we have a question is, can we also do a cookie authentication rather than JWT?
I'm not familiar with Cuckoo authentication, so maybe I have to check that. But why I would recommend JWT is because there is a WordPress plugin available, um, which is for JWT, which means you don't have to write anything on your own. It's available out of the box. All you have to do is just configure it and it's ready to go.
Okay, that's great. And we have also one more question. I think that this is very different. Angular is much more functional. I think so in a
Mhm.
comparison of React, I think saying Angular is much more functional. So why React?
To be honest, I'm not a fan of Angular, nor I have ever worked on Angular, so I will not be the best person to even differentiate those things for you because I can only comment on the things that I have worked with. So from the beginning itself, I have worked with React. I have not worked with Angular, and so I won't be able to comment on why Angular and why React comparison.
Okay. So we have one more question. Is there any possibility to use MongoDB instead of MySQL?
You can, but if you're building a WordPress application, like a decoupled WordPress application, then it's already in MySQL, which means all of the content is managed by WordPress. So in that case, you will use WordPress. But if you are building complete application in JavaScript, that's when you will use Node.js, and then you will choose MongoDB for as your storing data and stuff like that. I have built such applications as well in the past, but I would really say that whenever most of the things are involved with React, then go ahead and use Node.js and MongoDB. But if something is available uh, out of the box, like WordPress is really robust. It's got everything, your posts, pages, categories, and it's totally free. You own the data. So I feel that rather than reinventing the wheel of building entire backend yourself, if the backend is already available, might as well take advantage of that. And the best part is that if you want to build an application with GraphQL, there is a plugin available called WP GraphQL, which turns WordPress into a GraphQL server. So you can do all the queries, GraphQL queries for post pages on the endpoint slash GraphQL, which means you don't even have to write any code. It's available to you at your disposal. But if you build it in Node.js and choose the MongoDB option, then you will have to, and if you want GraphQL, then you'll have to write all of that code, which is available by default if you choose WordPress.
Okay, great. So I think other than that, we don't have any other questions, right? Yeah. So we have like this conclusions like REST API is just for beginners, but I think they should also start. They can use GraphQLs. We are saying up with this.
Yes.
And okay, great. Your views about layering persistent data and Elasticsearch.
I haven't worked with that, so no, I won't be able to comment on that.
Okay, so we have. Okay. Guys, do you have any other questions? So till then, do we have any other authentication other than JWT you were saying? other than authentication chances of other than JWT?
JWT is very secure, like I explained to you earlier. It's hard to break it because of the secret that you have available. You have salt. So I would really recommend JWT. JWT can, when you're building an application in WordPress, there's already a plugin available for that. But even if you're not, if you're building a Node.js application and using MongoDB, etc., there are packages available for JWT that you can use on NPM.
So you have been working with React and WordPress for like how long? Like,
It's been almost 2 years.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Can we import whole WP block into a custom front end?
Yes, you can. So there is a plugin available for that. If especially if you are using GraphQL, there is plugin called WP GraphQL Gutenberg, and that is an extension to WP GraphQL plugin. So what it does for you, I'm going to place the link here. What it does for you basically is it's going to make a property available in the GraphQL query, which is called block.json. So what it does under the hood is it parses all of the blocks and it gives you that block.json. So sometimes some pages will need interactivity. For example, you have a button click, and React says that you should not have direct DOM query. So for that reason, you can break those Gutenberg blocks into pieces using this particular plugin because it gives you that block JSON. So you have all of the past blocks as individual components. Then you can create separate React components for them and then add event listeners on them and just use it the way you want to. But if you are dealing with REST API, because I have explained to you, you can create custom endpoints. There is a function available in WordPress called parse blocks, and you can parse the blocks and just break it down in a way you want to, and then pass it in form of JSON to your front-end React application, and just display it the way you want to.
Okay. So we have a question. Can we use the combination of WordPress, Firebase, and React? I think
You
yeah,
can, you can.
yeah.
The best part is that because it's a headless, the data can flow from multiple platforms. It doesn't have to be just WordPress. In fact, one of the applications that I have been working with, they have the data is actually coming from, for example, let's say Discuss comments. Okay, so if you don't want to use the commenting system of WordPress and you want to use something more robust, you can use Discuss for that. So in fact, Discuss already has a package in React, which is called Discuss-React. So if you use that, all you have to do is just pass your short name of Discuss, and it's going to automatically integrate your entire Discuss commenting system in your React application out of the box without you having to do anything. And then you can simply manage all your comments from the Discuss platform. So that's the beauty of headless. You can have a content mesh. You can have content flowing from WordPress or maybe from a different website and just put them all together at one place in that React application to get a better user experience and better performance as well.
We have a question. Can we use React app inside WordPress in coupled way in themes?
You can, but you need to have a very solid reason of why you want to do that. The reason for this is because I think, if I'm not wrong, the size of React is almost 130 to 150 KB. Some people, what they do is, I mean, this is the question I get a lot: that can I use React in a theme on a single page? So I say to them that, why you want to do that? That's my first question. If it's just a small piece of functionality you want to achieve, which can very well be taken care by JavaScript, you don't want to load 130, 150 KB of React on that page and make it slow.
Right.
But yes, if there are a lot of moving elements, a lot of interactivity that's happening, and you really want to have a lot of stuff going on there, then yes, go ahead and use React. In fact, there is a plugin that I have built. Uh, you can take that as an example of how React is working over there. Just one moment, I'll share that. Okay, SMS. Yeah, so take a look at this plugin. So in this plugin, I'm actually using React on the page for the forms and stuff. And later on, probably I can share the code also if you want. So React basically is JavaScript. The problem is that why most people ask such questions is because I'm not talking about you, whoever has asked question in specific. I'm talking in general that you need to have a solid understanding of what React is. React is just JavaScript. So it's a simple logic. Wherever you can use JavaScript, you can use React. It could be anywhere. So it basically means that all you have to do is install React using and then use Webpack and Babel to bundle all of the components and convert it into a JavaScript that most browsers can understand. It's going to give you one single file, and then you can use one particular element with an ID of root, like I showed you earlier, and then insert all of your React elements inside of that element, that ID of root, and then you can enqueue that file, JavaScript file, into your WordPress page wherever you want to use React. So it's as simple as that.
Right. So we have another question. Is it safe to save the token in browser?
Yeah, of course. Like I explained to you earlier, because the in the local storage the secret is not present. Even if people have got it, they can't do anything with that. I mean, you can literally take that token and try to break it. You won't be able to do it because you don't have the secret. Secret is on the server. So if you, I'm going to just share a piece of code with you where actually it's stored on WordPress. So GitHub, React, WordPress. So in WordPress, there is a file called wp-config, and you know that's a server side. So that's where you define this secret. So it stays there on the WordPress PHP server. So people can't crack it without this.
So we have another how to bring I-18 and content through REST API.
Uh,
What is
yeah, that's a good question. I would say that um, if your function is already translating in WordPress, then you can very well, that content should already be translated. I mean, I haven't really worked with translation, but I'm assuming that's how it should be done. In WordPress, there are translation functions available, and then REST API can send that translated data.
okay? Great. Okay. So guys, any other questions? I think we have many questions here today about React, and everyone is cool.
We can take that offline as well if you want.
Yeah.
You know,
I think guys, if you have any other questions, you can just write in the comment box. We will reply it here. Okay, I think Imran, I think thank you so much. Like it
you're
was a
welcome.
great session today, and not just everyone, but literally I also learned so much today from you explaining this so easily and giving such examples. I think thank you so much for your time today and sharing this info with us. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Okay, everyone. Bye.